welcome to another new episode of Dr. Kamini Rao's Masterclass.
So probably they envied me rather than me envying them. Beyond the temple, beyond the woods, beyond the borders, let us seek new horizons and new lands.
You were able to understand that what will be the aspirations of people.
Constant debate between nature and nurture. Nature is, is your genetic, that inheritance, genetically what you are. You are shaped by that, and you're also shaped by nurture, which is people who nurture you, your family, your teachers. Came back and I said, let me do something. And I did not know at that time what I wanted to do, but I was very sure that I did not want to be in a government job anymore. So I realized that I could, instead of seeking a job myself, I thought I can create jobs in top. I then set up, a Udupi hotel. I had a stockbroking company. I had multifarious things. Then all this for me was, in a sense, that a training ground. I knew that I had to do something much bigger. I was all the time interested in entrepreneurship in terms of, like C.K. Prahlad said, the famous who later on became a friend of mine, whom I so admire, that entrepreneurs are the new freedom fighters of India. They give you freedom from poverty. They create wealth where none existed before. They create jobs. They created new markets. So I was in a position to look at opportunities. And in that environment, because I didn't want to leave my farm, because I was so much in love with the farm, and the farm was still growing. And my children were still going to school in Hassan for some time. And I said, I must stick on here and do multiple things to keep additional income for farming, because that is the problem with farming. Today we have 60% of people in farming, but their contribution to the GDP is much less. So we have too many people into farming, and those people in farming must parallelly get into other allied activities, various kinds of economic activities, which is possible. If you can have in a local area, you can fill the needs of the local people. So if farmers add additional things, occupations, they can make farming more viable. Otherwise, it's very difficult today for farmers to make their ends meet, because most of the farms are small holdings, and there are too many people in farming, which is not able to sustain them. So they must create opportunities for themselves and not wait for the government to. Of course, you have to demand from the government what government should do, but regardless of which government comes, I have also written about it extensively. Regardless of which government comes, it's impossible for the government to buy products at minimum prices, because there are thousands of crops. Not just one or two. Now they are giving the minimum price only for a few crops. So we need to get farmers to more entrepreneurial activities.
But the other thing is, see and believe, pursue and project. That seems to be the motto behind your writing your autobiography. Can you let me know what would you be thinking of if you were to take on this particular motto to end poverty in the world? Because you were always thinking of those have-nots, and you had this idea possessed that a common man must fly in India too. So taking that objective, what was eating your mind that you must get this common man to fly? And how did you go about it meticulously?
See, after about 10 years in farming, where I was living in my farm and dividing my time between Hassan district headquarters and my farm, I also got married when I was in my farm to a girl whose father was also a teacher. So we were living in a small cottage hut in the farm. My two children were born there. And so once my uh, all these small businesses got stabilized, and my farm became also self-sustaining. I moved to Bangalore to give. I thought, after they having studied a few years in the local schools, I moved to Bangalore to put them into better schools, for their education. So when I moved to Bangalore, I was going to the Army club to play squash and tennis. And I met an Army colleague of mine who had also retired from the Army. Yeah, still young. He was, many times Army people retire after 20 years of service. So they're only 40 when they retire. Yeah, but though I had retired when I was about 27, 28. So he was a helicopter pilot along with me in the Army. I was not flying, he was flying, but I was in the same branch. And he was looking for a job. And he was not getting a job. And his name is Captain Samuel. He was an outstanding pilot, a good buddy of mine. We were together in the Army and the ND and IMA. We went to war together. He was a roommate of mine and a buddy of mine. He was a great pilot, great temperament. And so I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm looking for a job." When I came back from my farm, I was talking to Captain Samuel. And then that's when we got the idea. And it's like he who said, "Why don't we start a company?" Because he was not getting a job. And I was an entrepreneur, he was a professional pilot. And so that's how we came together. And I said, let's do it.
So, Captain Gopinath, you've often mentioned, I came back to India possessed by the idea that the common man must fly in India too. With this mindset, you have launched India's first low-cost airline, Air Deccan, in 2003. Do you consider your rural background and connectivity to life in rural areas to have impacted your decision to launch India's first low-cost airline for the common man?
Everybody asks me, now, how is it that being from an ex-army background and being in farming, and we had no money, how did you start a very capital-intensive industry? And there is a very famous saying by George Bernard Shaw. He says, "You see things and ask why. You see things and ask why. And I dream things and I ask why not." So in that sense, many times ideas that are crazy, ideas that seem impossible, take wings because, as Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, truly you can do it. But the dreaming, has to be combined with adventure. It has to be a combination of adventure of ideas and adventure of action. So dreaming by itself will not get you anywhere, and action without dreaming will also not take you to the skies. You have to dream and act with speed. So I got this idea, of starting the helicopter company because there were no helicopters in the country at that time. The whole of South India, there was not a single helicopter, and there were pilots without jobs, and there were engineers from the Army and the Air Force and the Navy without jobs. And India was on the way to reforms under Mr. Narasimha Rao. So, country on the way to reforms, and the communist state of Russia had collapsed. Our neighbor China, which is a communist country, had embraced capitalism without abandoning communist ideology, but had embraced market economics. So I realized that India will not remain in isolation. So it was a great, combination of pilots without jobs and not a single helicopter company, and the country on the way to reforms. And so I said, let's start it. And we started a helicopter company. It took us 3 years to get a license. And as you know, there is corruption in the country. But but we didn't have money to pay. We didn't have money to bribe. Neither did we want to bribe, nor did we have the money to bribe. And as you said, I think when you were talking to me before the video, it is not resources that give you success. It is being resourceful. In fact, if you have too many resources, then you will not stretch yourself either by effort or by imagination. Low resources, lack of resources, and high dreams, is a good combination. And because excess of resources gives complacency, and you will not invent, and you will not innovate, and that's what happened to us. So you have to become the idea. The idea has to become you. Become you in a Vedantic way. The idea, the venture, and you must become one. There can't be a duality in that. And so you have to have that passion which consumes you. You only have to see the light and not the darkness around the tunnel. All obstacles will give way. And for a man who is resolved, doors open. There is corruption, but there are good ministers. Some minister will say, why do I take it from this ex-army officer? The bigger industrialists who will pay me. If some bureaucrat, will open the door for you. In fact, in my own case, many bureaucrats helped me. They saw themselves in my shoes. And also the idea was so powerful. Both the first time at the helicopter company and the second time, as you said, about the airline. So that's how we started the helicopter company. After 3 years of working for the license, without paying a rupee, we got the helicopters. But people ask, how do you get the money? So today, unlike in the former days, there are some things which are better than the earlier days for entrepreneurs. If you have an idea, if you have the energy, if you have the passion, that is more important than capital. It was true then, it's true today, it's true tomorrow. If you have the idea, capital will come to meet you. People with money will chase you, and somebody will see your idea and put money. And so one day when I was flying the helicopter over the hills and villages, because I was both continue to go to my farm, continue to go through the villages, I was seeing on the ground what was happening. And when I used to go to the villages, deep through the villages at 7 o'clock at dusk, in those days, there was only a few channels, and in a village there would be one entrepreneur who would put a dish antenna and collect 1,000 rupees from villagers each house and show different channels. So it was the early days when you had Kannada news channel, Kannada movie channel, Telugu movie channel, Telugu news channel, English movie channel, Hindi movie channel. And what do you see in between the content? You see the advertisement. They were asking villagers to buy motorcycles, buy refrigerators, buy second-hand cars or a car. So the whole country had become aspirational. And it was when I was flying in the helicopter, I noticed that whenever I went through over a village, I said, fly down. And I would see deep in the Western Ghats, in a small village, there would be a dish antenna. Large dish antenna. In those days, it was not a direct-to-home dish antenna. It was a big 15-feet dish antenna in the middle of a village, giving connectivity. So for me, this imagery, this imagery came that this billion people, they're not poor and hungry, but they are hungry consumers. And it flashed me that they were buying everything but air tickets. They were buying in the villages also nowadays. In those days, in taluk headquarters, you could see somebody buying a refrigerator. So when I was on a flight in Southwest Airlines in USA, there was which is a low-cost airline. There was a gentleman sitting next to me in his bunions, big arms, tattoos, eating a burger, and I asked him what was he, and he said he was a carpenter. And that's when this idea came to me that in India, mechanics and carpenters and nurses and clerks, they must travel. And that's how I came and said, we must start an airline. And nobody believed in it. So it's important to believe, in your dream. Self-trust is the first secret of success. In Kannada, there's a proverb, Angaina Hunnige Kannadi Beke. If you have an abscess in your palm, do you need a mirror? You don't need a mirror. Normally, you go to a consultant. The consultant is like the mirror. You can see your abscess on your palm, but you don't need a mirror for that. So I was seeing this vision of common people flying, and everybody said, where is the market? Only 1% of India is flying. But I was looking at the 99% who are not flying. And that's how this idea of starting a low-cost airline came, because I realized that the country was aspirational. There were more people moving into the middle class, but airline had become, they did not even envy air travel. Somehow airline was not in their wish list. Somehow they felt they did not even envy it. They did not even think it is possible to fly. And so I broke the barriers. I broke the barriers of the cost barrier as well as the caste barrier. When I say caste barrier, you may be a rich man, but if you're a villager, you will not go to your Oberoi hotel because you're conscious of your dress, conscious of your language. So I had to break that and make it easy. And so I worked with the government and presented this dream to the government, saying that we must make more Indians fly, and that is only then your economy will grow. Your economy cannot grow just by reforms. It has to grow by connectivity of not only cell phones and television and internet. Of course, in those days, hardly any internet was there. Connectivity is key, because if your investments had to go to rural areas, if your investment has to go to Hubli, to Rajahmundry, then both goods and people must travel there. If people cannot travel to your interior, investment will not go. And tourism is the biggest employer in the world. All our great tourist spots, Hampi, Belo Halebi temples, all of them are in rural areas. So I felt that this is something which cannot fail. And that's how I started.
Yeah, that is really good. And that's quite an exhaustive explanation that you've given, because it has covered almost everything that you have said. And you're an extraordinarily multifaceted person. You're surely an inspiration for every youth of this nation and beyond. How would you advise your youth on pursuing complex areas of interest as well as managing a qualitative work-life balance?
The first thing is that people must be interested, not just in their subjects or what they studied. They must have, in addition to being good in whatever they have studied or whatever they're doing, they must have a variety of interests to be immersed in the society around them. And like Einstein said, he said, I'm not a genius. Einstein very famously said, I'm not a genius. I'm infinitely more curious, and I stay with the problem longer. I'm infinitely more curious, and I stay with the problem longer. So there has to be curiosity. There has to be interest in a wide variety of things. You must be immersed in society. You must be plugged into every aspect of society, because that will inform you what kind of ventures you can get into. And you should not get into a venture because it can make money. The money must be a consequence of you creating something. So if you are passionate about something, if you believe in something, then you should listen to your heart. You should listen to your heart, because everyone who has started anything, they were always told it is crazy. They were always told it is not possible. So you have to believe and have the courage to take that first flight.
Thank you, Captain Gopinath. That was a wonderful session. I'm sure, viewers, you had a lot to take from the incredible journey of Air Deccan founder Captain G.R. Gopinath. Work on, hold on, be brave, dare anything and everything. Keep watching Dr. Kamini Rao's masterclass.